Qualifying for the British Grand Prix is over and it's an all British 1-2-3 as George Russell takes pole position at Silverstone and Lewis Hamilton is second with Lando Norris in third. But what did we learn? Well, in this video I'm going to be doing a data analysis from qualifying. If you enjoyed the video then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top 5 teams later on, which is Aston Martin, Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull, so stick around for that. Yep, qualifying is over, and it was a chaotic session with some big shocks going out in Q1 and Q2. There was also an unbelievable amount of circuit evolution as the track continued to dry after starting in intermediate conditions. This was a day for keeping it on track, and George Russell in the Mercedes managed that and secured pole position. But how did his times improve during the session? Well, let's take a look at all of his laps from qualifying. For this, I've also had to include his slow laps due to the intermediate lap times being as slow as they were. But with this, you can see how, as the session progressed, the times started to tumble and just get faster and faster. To see how much the grip came to the drivers during qualifying, I am going to be comparing George Russell's first push lap on soft tyres to his soft lap for pole position. And what can you see when you look at these two laps? Well, firstly, Russell is significantly faster at the start of the lap because Russell got a much better exit from the final corner and was able to carry a lot of speed. You can see that going into the first braking zone on the final lap, Russell was able to brake later as the circuit was drier and the tyres had more temperature and grip. Through the infield section, though, it's actually pretty similar between the two laps. But then down the Wellington Straight, Russell is able to use DRS in Q3, and then through Brooklands, Russell carries 30 km/h more at the apex, showing just how much more grip he has at the end of the qualifying session. Then heading into Copse corner, there is a massive difference, and this is where all of the time is made. In Q1 at Copse, Russell has to brake pretty heavily and slow all the way down to 124 km/h, whereas in Q3, he's able to take that corner at 293 km/h. At that corner, there is an immense amount of grip in Q3, and Russell's almost flat out. Through this corner alone, Russell is able to gain 5 seconds. Then through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, you can see Russell is a hell of a lot smoother in Q3, whereas in Q1 he has to brake a little bit harder as he's trying to find the grip. Then at Stowe corner in Q3, Russell carries 50 km/h more at the apex before flying through Club corner. Altogether, the lap time improvement was 11.1 seconds. So we've seen how much the circuit improved during qualifying and got faster and faster, but what about the top speeds and what were the teams able to reach? Well, let's take a look then at the top speeds that they were able to reach. As usual, the slowest car in a straight line was Alpine. However, they do have a bit of an excuse for this. Alpine was the only team to get fully eliminated in Q1, and during Q1 there was no DRS, meaning that they couldn't get a straight line speed advantage. So, there is a reason for that. What about the rest of the teams though? Well, what we can see here is Aston Martin was surprisingly very fast in a straight line, and they look to be in a much better position this weekend than what we saw recently from them, especially last time in Austria. Haas, though, were once again the fastest car in a straight line, as they were able to reach a top speed of 328 km/h. The slowest car in a straight line that did have access to DRS was Sauber, as they were only able to reach 322 km/h. In general, though, the top speeds were very similar between a lot of the teams, which goes hand in hand with F1 being very close in general at the moment. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about the top 5 teams, starting with Aston Martin. For Aston Martin, it was a bit of an improvement in form, as they got both cars into Q3 with Lance Stroll in 8th place and Fernando Alonso in 10th place. Lance had a fairly solid day, beating his teammate once again. But the two Astons were beaten by Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas, so they were not the top midfield team today. Let's now then compare the times of Hulkenberg to Stroll to see how the Haas managed to beat the Astons. And when you look at these laps, it actually starts off fairly strong for Aston Martin. Haas though has the edge in terms of straight line performance, which is kind of what you would expect. However, at the heavy braking zones at the infield section, Stroll actually gains a lot of time on Hulkenberg as he gets a bad run through the loop. But Hulkenberg comes back down the Wellington straight, and then through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, Hulkenberg manages to carry the speed, showing how the recent Haas upgrades have really helped them in the middle and high speed corners. Hulkenberg then carries that advantage all the way down the hangar straight and gets a good run from club corner to the line and manages to beat Lance Stroll by 2/10. In the race tomorrow, I expect that it will be a good battle between Aston Martin and Haas. If it is wet, then I do think we will see Haas maybe come out on top unless they take one too many risks, which is sometimes what they do in these conditions. For Mercedes, it was pure elation as they have secured a front row lockout with George Russell on pole position and teammate Lewis Hamilton in second place. Mercedes is very much on the rise in terms of performance and they are in a great position to score big this weekend. Let's compare the times of Russell then to Lewis Hamilton, and when you look at these two lap times, they are incredibly similar, showing that they were getting everything out of their Mercedes cars at the end of qualifying. The first difference though was when Russell going into Brooklands was able to carry a little bit more speed than Lewis Hamilton. Through Copse, Maggots and Beckett's they were virtually identical. But at Chapel Corner, Russell carries just a little bit more speed than Lewis, and this is where Russell gets the edge over his teammates as he carries that advantage all the way down the hangar straight and through Stowe Corner. These were two very close laps, but in the end it was Russell that came out on top. In the race tomorrow, I expect that there will be fireworks between the two, but over a race stint, I can see Lewis coming out on top over George Russell. It is though going to be must watch between the two, especially at the start. For McLaren, Lando Norris missed out on pole position and is lining up in third place on the grid, and he abandoned his final run. This was a missed opportunity for him to take pole position, and I feel like he should be the Brit on pole, but instead he is starting alongside Max Verstappen, which I'm sure will be exciting at the start. How though did Norris miss out on pole position? Well, let's compare his lap to George Russell, and when you take a look at these two laps, you can see that through Copse, Maggots, Beckett's, Russell is able to carry a little bit more speed as the Mercedes has improved their performance in a straight line and through this area. Down the hangar straight and the Wellington straight, Russell is also faster in a straight line, showing once again how Mercedes have improved in that area. Russell was a little bit faster through Stowe Corner, and this together led to a Mercedes on pole position. But it has to be said, this was Russell's final lap, and this lap for Norris was his first lap in Q3, so Russell did have slightly better circuit conditions. In the race tomorrow, if Norris survives the start, then I can see him being in a great position to win, as the McLaren is the faster car, especially in race conditions. For Ferrari, it was a poor day as Charles Leclerc was eliminated in Q2 as he was struggling for pace and performance, as once again it looks like the Ferrari has fallen away from the rest in terms of performance. Teammate Sainz did make it through to Q3, but he was not the fastest Ferrari powered car of the day as that belongs to Haas who beat him in Q3. In the race, if it is dry, I can see them having a bit of an improved performance as they are better in race conditions, but once again, they are the fourth fastest team and they will probably lose second in the Constructors' Championship to McLaren. Finally, for Red Bull, it was not a good day as Sergio Perez found himself in the gravel during Q1 and he will be starting the race from 19th place, which once again is not good enough for Red Bull. Teammate Verstappen made a mistake in Q1 and had a trip through the gravel, but he survived and will be starting the race from 4th place. Let's compare the times then of Verstappen to George Russell in Q3, and when you look at these laps, you can see that Verstappen may have actually had some floor damage from his trip through the gravel, because when it comes to the high speed corners in Sector 2, which is where you would expect them to be very, very strong, he's actually weaker than the Mercedes. Verstappen also doesn't get a good run from Chapel, and therefore loses time all the way down the hangar straight. He also doesn't carry as much speed at Stowe Corner, and ultimately lost 0.4 of a second. In the race tomorrow, with a fully fit Red Bull, I then expect a strong fight between Verstappen and the three Brits for victory at Silverstone. So, with that in mind then, what are my final predictions for the British Grand Prix? Well, in P5, I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P4 will be George Russell in the Mercedes. P3 will be Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P2 will be Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. And I expect Lando Norris to win the British Grand Prix. If he doesn't bottle it, that is. But those are my final predictions. The question is though, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.